again, and welcome to the next step. There is a powerful force that defines our world and our place in it, but few of us are even aware that it exists. That force lives right here in our minds. And although we are not aware of it, let me assure you that power is not only aware of it, but has exploited it for centuries. And it is the power of narrative. It is the ability of powerful people to create a story, a narrative, that we wrap our identity and our understanding of the world in. And from that perspective, they are able to lead us and guide us in all sorts of directions, and we never even realize what's happening. Because we believe it's all organic. It all sprang from what we believe in our communal beliefs particularly. And in that communal belief, it is very hard to break out of the pattern of believing we're all on the same page. And if you become separated from the story, from the narrative, you become something of a pariah and a problem in your society. Well, today, to help me discuss this incredibly important subject, because this isn't like a subject that comes and goes, that passes through time. It's always there. It's always affecting the way we think, and it's always being used as a tool to direct us and to steer our thinking and our compliance with agenda. And so I have today Mr. Brett Hughes, who I'm sure you know in the past has proved himself to be quite the exemplary, thoughtful human being, and with a great deal of education and critical thought in his, what do you call that thing that you put your ammunition in? But anyhow, I'll just say in his ammunition belt. So is there something you would like to begin with?
It's the power of narratives.
Right.
And to me, how we learn things, how we understand things is usually through a narrative. We don't just learn a bunch of random bits of information and bits and pieces. We tie things together through, if you go back through ancient history, through stories, through, what's happened in the past regarding this, or, it's just, stories are the fabric of our memories. They're the fabric, how they tie our thoughts together and our knowledge. And without those, the bits and pieces of information that we do learn or we do come exposed, that we are exposed to, just kind of fall down. Randomly. Because there's nothing to tie it together with our other memories.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think as a species, as a society, we've sort of been taught not to trust ourselves, but to trust the larger society as a whole, and to go with what the general accepted narrative is, and instead of thinking critically on our own. And which again makes us extremely vulnerable to those who would take advantage of the power of creating stories and the power of being able to lead individuals and groups through the story. So we are so naively or innocently led by our own belief system which is not necessarily something that we ourselves actually came up with. I mean, you know, you can just look back in history at religion and see how it was so beautifully manipulated to get, I mean, and I shouldn't say where it still is, beautifully manipulated to get huge groups of people to line up behind political agendas. You know, it's nothing to do with religion as far as the politicians go, but they wrap their narrative, their political narrative, and infuse it with the religious narrative, and voila, you have people marching off to slaughter other people for a political rationale when actually it's only in their minds, in their hearts, it's about God. And you know, this has happened so many times throughout history. It seems to be fail-proof. I mean, they're still using it. I mean, today you can look at what is happening in our own news cycles. You know, it's the impeccable moral West against those strange, corrupt, God knows what the problem is, Muslims. I mean, you know, you can find politicians who literally say these things. You know, sometimes they go, oh no, it has nothing to do with religion at all. But then on the next page, you'll find those very things. And, you know, it's frightening because we don't learn. We don't learn because the narratives are so powerful. We will not go against the narrative and be the outlier, the pariah, who dares to say, no, no. And it's a very dangerous thing. And again, that power is right there in your mind. And power, you know, the people power know exactly how to manipulate it. They have spent decades and decades with sociologists, psychologists, anthropologists, you name it, these think tanks, on and on and on, and they know how your mind works. And they have to use it because ultimately what power must do is control you. The ultimate enemy of power is the people. They would have nothing if they could not control the people. And they do it so beautifully within the narrative.
Yeah, there's a legal principle that's when a jury goes in for a court case and they get instructions from the judge, and the judge says, hey, if a witness comes up and is shown to lie, shown that something that they're saying is not true, then you can basically throw out everything that witness says. Now, if we take that same principle and apply it to the mainstream media, we find that the mainstream media, the narratives that it provides, based on the information that it provides, is lying to us. It's very easy to show that, lying through either omission or directly lying or misleading.
Yeah.
And there's lots of proofs of that. And, you know, the mainstream media is not one, you know, not like a single-headed dragon. It's like, you know, there's lots of media areas and stuff like that. But in general, there is a central themes. There are central narratives, and what the information that goes outside of those narratives gets dropped.
Right.
And if you can see a piece of that information that is dropped, but is super critical. I mean, it's super important, and would in fact change the narratives. Would have to change the narratives because the information, since it's factual information, that one piece, if that's true, then the narrative is wrong. And so,
Right, yeah.
and so, and it's very easy to find these type of information to show that the mainstream media is lying to us, is
Sure.
generating narratives that are false to
Right.
mislead us, to
Uh-huh.
basically like sheep, give us the narratives that keep us moving in a certain direction that are actually leading us off a cliff.
Oh, sure.
And off a cliff in order for the rancher to take our meat,
Scrape it up.
Yeah, and the ranchers are the owners. But anyway, if you look on, like, for example, my website's I've got full of these type of information from mainstream media, articles, documentaries, all sorts of things that show that the narratives that we've been fed are false. And so my website's mostcrucial.info. And for example, on the article section under health, there's an article from The Guardian, February 12th, 1999, called Food Scandal Exposed. And it talks about how a scientist tested rats with GMO potatoes. That's genetically modified potatoes. And that's my website on screen. And anyway, the scientist just fed these rats just straight genetically modified potatoes and had a control group that eat just the same brand tomatoes, but not genetically modified.
Right.
Anyway, the rats, after just 10 days, showed significant problems with multiple internal organs, reduced functioning, lower size. They started having problems reproducing. They had a lower immune system. And anyway, this scientist was at first praised. He's like, one of the top scientists in his field. And he was soon, because this did not fit part of the narrative of that, genetically modified foods, it's great for you. And this is actually the first test that was done, publicly about genetically modified food. And so anyway, he got fired from his position, although he was exonerated for doing anything wrong. And anyway, so you can read this article all about it, talking about genetically modified foods and how, and there's been other studies that have shown that there's major, it's basically a weak poison.
Oh, of course.
And it affects you in different ways. So if you ate a lot of genetically modified foods, you're going to be poisoned, but you won't see that on the mainstream media, because in the mainstream media, the narrative is genetically modified is good. There's nothing wrong with it. It improves food. There's nothing wrong with it. But the true narrative is that it's a poison. Just like when they fluoridate the water in the United States or in Australia. There's a great documentary called Firewater about Australia's fluoridation program. And that is basically an industrial waste that they're pouring into the actual drinking water, the water that they're giving out to the populace. The city water is actually has an industrial waste which has fluoride in it, but it's just straight industrial waste that's poured into the drinking water and then shipped out for people to drink. Now, the corporation that's creating this waste couldn't dump it. I mean, they'd have to pay a lot of money to get rid of this stuff. But they actually sell it to the cities, and they do this type of stuff in the United States as well. And again, you can look at my website and read articles about this. You can see documentaries about it. And so, but it doesn't fit the narrative. But there's a true narrative that goes beyond these false narratives that the mainstream media is feeding us in order to, like sheep, head us straight off a cliff in their favor, so the rancher can have easy meat. Unfortunately,
all of the I'm not saying that there are beneficial, end results of narratives on a small scale, because like it makes issues more understandable. It's something that people can coalesce around, like everybody's got a project and we want to join together and do this.
There's nothing wrong with narratives in itself.
In and of itself, the narrative is not necessarily a bad thing, but when it is exploited the way it has been by people who know they can use groups of human beings, and if not to dovetail into a narrative they already have, or create a narrative from scratch, to use them